Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Optimistic Agenda podcast. And if you're new here, welcome. Thank you for being here. My name is Mossam and I'm your host. I'm so excited for today's episode. We are carrying on with part 2 of my spiritual awakening and the journey that's been. And it's been a while since I recorded the previous one, but so much has happened. So I'm really excited to carry on. And we're going to see if this becomes a 3-part session because there's still so much that I have to share because I want to give you all the juice. And it would be wonderful for me to revisit this further down the line as well and to see what else comes from it or has come from it. So I hope you're ready. I hope you have your tea or a fun little drink with you and you're ready for this story. So let's get going. So where we'd stopped off last time was I just had the session. I just had this crazy wild experience and I didn't share my session because I thought I was crazy and I was making this all up and I did not understand where this was coming from. Now, just before I go on, if this is seeming a little bit weird in the sense of it's hanging or it's not quite making sense, all of this, then definitely go back and listen to episode number 1 because we're carrying on from there. And all the pieces will kind of come and fit in together, okay? But yeah, so from that day onwards, I kind of just started seeing triple numbers all over the place. Like as soon as it was kind of like a black and white situation in that sense where I went in completely like being me, the old me, quote unquote, and had this experience and I walked out an entirely new person in a different dimension, so to speak. And I started seeing all these triple numbers everywhere, like all over the place. And this was not something that I was aware of or I'd ever subscribed to. Like it just wasn't seen. It just wasn't something that was in my world. Like people around me didn't talk about. Like it was just, I was one of those people who would laugh in your face if you told me, oh, hey, look, triple numbers or all these other things. And I have seen them every day since. And I get all these messages coming through. And for some of you, it might sound, oh my gosh, look at her. She's just talking about all of these things and it sounds so far-fetched. I assure you, when you get to that point, it's not. Like it used to be. I used to be one of those people where I would think like, oh, look, like sometimes we tell ourselves anything to make ourselves feel better. But there are times where there is that communication going on and taking place. And if you're aware of it, it's the most magical thing ever. So as much as possible, I don't want to sound very far-fetched, but it is something that is there and it's a constant source of guidance or so it's just there, yes. And it's everywhere. It's all over the place. I'm not even looking for it. And over the next couple of sessions, I found out that those figures were guides. Those hooded figures, whatever it was that I had seen, were guides. And I had just astral projected into a completely different sort of dimension. I have no idea where. It was somewhere in between. I'm not really sure, but whatever it was very non-physical that I had opened myself or become completely open to. And suddenly it was my mind, my eyes, like I had just completely opened up to this different dimension. Let's call it that. And I suddenly started seeing all of these things everywhere. My senses just opened up. They heightened. My intuition heightened, and kind of like the Matrix, I started seeing all the patterns and the darkness and the light and the possibilities and all the different just things that exist that we are told like we need proof for. So I'm going to try and articulate this. There's so many times growing up we're told it's almost like it's in the education system. It's ingrained in us that I will only believe it when I see it. And then I saw the exact flip side of that, where it is like I saw it and I had no choice but to believe it. And isn't that the basis of manifestation as well? This is just from a different sort of perspective, if you will. So everything suddenly just made sense and clicked in a strangely weird, but not so strange and weird way. Like, it's just the norm. And we are coming back to it. And it was like I was coming back to it. And all of a sudden, I was drawn to Reiki and to energy healing, and I became very sensitive to energy as well. And I went on and got my attunements, and this was something that I had been sitting on for a while, and it was magical. It just opened me up even more to the energetic and the non-physical realm, in the most beautiful way there could be. I have no words to describe it. It's a sensation, it's a feeling, it's something that's so deep in the body's understanding, way of being and thinking and seeing the world started changing. And these are all points in time where it was like almost black and white. They were very fixed points. And I woke up to the fact and became very conscious and aware of the fact that the time-space continuum is a human construct. This was when I was getting my attunements. And it only exists on this plane, and that we can access the infinite resources in the non-physical and the energetic realm. And that is what a lot of people now call the quantum field. And it's wild how that happens, because we can heal. And this is where it never ceases to amaze me, where we talk about the inner child healing, connecting to our higher self, like just all of these different things along a point of time, if you will, in the human way. When we're healing the inner child, if you're aware of the inner child, if not, I can definitely cover this in a future episode. But this has been absolutely life-changing for me, in the grandest possible way. So when we're healing these different past versions of us, when we were tapping into them on the energetic field, because the time-space continuum does not exist and energy can travel across time and space, because again, it's a human construct. By healing that part of ourselves in now, we're already healing it at that time, but we're healing it now. I hope that's making sense. And that's affecting and rippling across the field, across all these different versions of us. So if you have any questions, definitely just drop me a message. And I will be more than happy to try and simplify that. I don't want to go off on a tangent. But yeah, I started becoming more aware of that, and that changed a lot. Like, I started healing different parts of myself. I started healing different and accessing different versions of me, and tapping into the kind of person that I wanted to become. And yeah, and then all the healing tools and modalities started coming to me so hard and so fast. It was overwhelming, to say the least. And I really had to try and fixate on one thing at a time. And considering I didn't know anyone, I didn't know who to talk to about this, or I didn't know anyone who, knew any of this, because it was so new for me. I didn't know it was a thing. I thought it was just me. And not just me in that sense, but I didn't know. I thought it was just making stuff up in my head, and you don't know what you don't know, right? Let's put it at that. And it was so new. No one that I knew in my life understood any of this, and there was no one I knew who knew any of this. So I really did the best that I could with it, and then I started coming across and attracting those people into my life, that people who understood these things, people who had gone through these things, people who were maybe just a little bit ahead on this path. Yeah. And I started manifesting faster. A lot of things started coming into my life and into my orbit. And I attracted some of my best friends, my soul sisters, into my sphere, and we've been in contact ever since. I've still not met them yet, but we are on the way. We're calling that in. And I started coming across a lot of other people as well, not only from here, but from all over the world. And I started shedding a lot of conditioning and getting more confident. I started healing those old wounds, the old stories that I'd been holding on to. A lot of that started just falling off and melting away. And now look, I'm not saying I'm perfect. It's still a work in progress, but I am so much further along than when I started. I was having a conversation with someone recently, and sometimes we feel that we've not made this progress because we're with ourselves 24/7, 365 days a year. And when we're on the inside and it's just us, it's so hard to notice it if you're not making a conscious effort to. And even if you are, sometimes really hard because there are micro shifts. It's taking place on micro levels, on a very Zoomified level, if you will. And it's only in having these conversations sometimes where I realize, oh my gosh, this used to be so hard and so daunting. And now it just feels like a walk in the park, or I can just show up and I'm not even thinking about this. And that is how a lot of healing works, which is why sometimes documenting helps and having these conversations helps, is because we forget, because our mind, our subconscious is constantly getting rewired, and those old neural pathways fall away and they fade off into the background, and it just changes the way we are being, right? Like who we are and who we're being changes completely, and our brain is rewired. So all of that changes. And a long story short, all of this to say is we don't recognize a lot of that because our mind has a tendency to forget what is no longer, we're just not giving energy to it. And when we stop giving attention to it, it disintegrates because it's just not active anymore. And what we are giving energy to actually thrives and flourishes. So that's just a very simplified way of the way our brain works. And really anything works, right? Energetically speaking as well. And so a lot of that shedding and everything was taking place, and I started rewiring a lot of my pathways. I started doing a lot of healing. I started tapping into more, tapping. I started doing a lot of tapping and a lot more other like somatic work as well. And it has been such a wild ride. Honestly, sometimes it still is. There are sometimes just you want to pull your hair out because healing is a journey, and I continue to learn, I continue to grow and evolve and reiterate and bring all of this into my work. I bring all of this into my life, into everything that I'm doing, into my day-to-day. And with everything so far, my passion and desire for coaching and speaking and educating returned with a vengeance, having been suppressed for several years. Now, if I were to backtrack a little bit, when I was little, this is what I wanted to do. I would see myself speaking to people. I would see myself teaching what I knew and sharing the knowledge and the wisdom that I had. I just didn't think it was available to me. I thought it was so far away for me that I could only do it when I was, 40 or 50 years old or way older, right? Because let's be honest, at that age, we think even 30 is very old, when it's not. Or even 20. We used to think, I remember thinking like, oh, 20-year-olds are so old. Anyways, and we see 8-year-old speakers who are moving a room full of adults into action or inspiration. So just a note for anyone doubting this at any point, wherever you are, you're in the right space at the right time. And now is a good time as ever. Anyway, so having suppressed all of that, all of this coming up and bubbling up, I set an intention for clarity on sharing this message. And I got the optimistic agenda. But here's the thing. The page, the concept already existed. I had already created it, which just goes to show that I was thinking about this long before any of this happened. But I got the direction for it. I had a clear indication of now what I could do with it because I had it. I just didn't know how to go about it or what to do. But now I had those answers, and it had a concrete purpose now. And here we are. I started sharing a lot of my journey. I started taking on clients. I started doing more tapping and speaking. I started up this podcast, and honestly, the rest is history. Like, here we are. It's all of that has led to this moment right here, and all the moments that will follow. Getting here, I have battled anxiety, doubt, fear, so many other things, like who is going to listen to me? How will this happen? How will I do it? What exactly am I going to do? And all of that has just unfolded in the most innocuous ways that I could not have predicted. And all that is also just to share that you may be feeling right now as you're listening to this, or may have felt this kind of thing around, I have no idea what this next step is. It's almost like feeling this anxiety and this fear having its grip over you, right? You're feeling almost frozen. Now, that is where a lot of these practices like somatic practice, tapping, movement, healing, coming back into the present moment, all of these things, all these different things, there's a lot, right? But whatever your chosen method and practice is, this is where really the rubber meets the road. And this is where it really comes into practice, is bringing yourself back into that state of calmness, into that presence, and realizing that all you need to know is the next best thing that you need to do right now. What is that thing you can do right now to move you forward? You don't need to see the whole staircase. You literally just need to take the next step in the right direction, or in any direction. And all directions are the right direction. Spoiler alert. It does not matter if you think you've ended up on the quote unquote wrong path, because they all lead to the same place, which is your highest evolution. And that is a journey we're all on. That is a journey I'm still on. And it's one that I've been speaking about, I've been dreaming about, I've been manifesting for such a long time, that is coming to fruition in the most delicious ways imaginable. And I'm here for it. Okay, that's it from me for now, and I will see you in the next episode. Until then, if you loved what you heard, please consider leaving me a 5-star review, take a screenshot of the episode and share it to your Instagram stories, and don't forget to tag me at The Optimistic Agenda. And did I forget to mention, if you want to dive in deeper, you can come and work with me one-on-one. Just drop me a DM on Instagram or send me an email on theoptimisticagenda@gmail.com. Or if you want to get a feel of my work and see what I'm all about, and you want to kind of get your feet wet, then you can go and get my Radical Self-Love Workbook on etsy.com/shop/theoptimisticagenda. I will leave the link in the show notes. And I'm constantly adding new offers. So if we're not already connected, come and join me on Instagram at The Optimistic Agenda for all of the updates and more juicy goodness. And please feel free to shoot me a DM and say hi. I always love hearing from you. Remember, you are so much more powerful than you were made to believe.